Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage Ufi Ibrahim, Chief Executive, British Hospitality Association.
Thank you all very, very much. I hope that you've been inspired this morning. As I told you right at the start, at this summit we want you to sit up, not sit back. We want you to engage. We want you to listen and to challenge and to participate. So I hope that we've given you enough ammunition and desire to be able to really interact with us in a very, very interactive afternoon. At the very heart of everything that we are building as a community lies the importance of effective communication. But to communicate effectively, one has to listen and know who they're communicating with, how to communicate with them, and also the channels with which to be able to communicate effectively. And that's where the focus of this afternoon is going to be. This afternoon, we're going to concentrate on how we can improve our communication with our talent pipeline. How can we tackle that big perception issue? What are we doing to do that, and how can we improve it? And your participation in helping us to define that route forward is critical. But also with customers, and also, as I said before, with the channels that we use. The media being one channel that we use to be able to communicate out, but also technology. And to start us off, with a focus on those channels, those communication channels and technology, I'm delighted to welcome Christopher Rodrigues, Chairman of Visit Britain, who is going to lead this first session for us. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Christopher Rodrigues.
Thanks, Sophie. It's a great pleasure to be here, and let me just publicly congratulate you after a decade of trying and finally getting that Tourism Council together. It is a big step, and we were all here to watch you make it happen, so well done. More demanding customers, more savvy customers, more sensitive customers. And while we talk about that, the world of technology is changing. Kleiner Perkins has just done a very interesting survey. Internet growth, usage growth, 10% a year, but declining. Smartphones, 20% growth a year. 22% of the world's population have them now. Mobiles, 73% of the population. Tablets, volumes growing at 52% a year. It is the fastest tech takeoff any of us have seen. And mobile data growing at 81% a year. So technology is central to our customers' lives. The question is, how are we harnessing technology as an industry to get insights into those customers, to develop products that meet those customers' needs, and to adjust our offer so that it stays competitive and relevant. To start proceedings, we're going to have a keynote speech from Graham Codrington, Dr. Graham Codrington, who's the International Director of Tomorrow Today, who, if he lives up to his job title, should have a perspective on the future. Graham.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you this afternoon. We live in a world that is fast-moving, fast-paced, complex, tougher maybe than it's ever been before. And the rules for success and failure in many industries, and probably most notably in your industry, I think hospitality and tourism and probably banking and financial services are both near the top of the list of industries that are really dealing with massive, significant shifts in the rules for success and failure. And just if that wasn't enough, all of this is happening at a time when a new generation of young people are coming into the world of work, both as customers and as staff. And they're bringing with them not just the normal bravado of youth that has always been there. Maybe they have that too. But they are coming in as a new generation, a generation that has been born and brought up and shaped in this digital world, and arrives in the world of work and arrives in your customer targets with a very different set of expectations, a very different set of views and worldviews about what is right and wrong and good and bad and normal and weird. And we cannot wait for them to grow up. Now, there's two ways to interpret that sentence, and I mean it the more difficult way. We are not going to be able to just grit our teeth and wait for these young snots to wake up and to get with the program. They are different. They are different from us. They are different from how we were at that age. And they are not going to grow up to become like us. Now, of course, we need to be very careful when we talk about generations to generalize. Of course, that's the danger of talking like this. Like men are from Mars and women are from Venus. A complete overgeneralization. That just happens to be true. And so although, yes, we can't define each individual in the world, we can group people together nicely and try and get some sense of who they are and how they want to connect with each other. We have to be very careful, of course, to think about different regions and different geographies. But let me position this thought in your mind. Take a 17-year-old who lives in London, and then another one who lives in Newcastle. Take another one who lives in New York, and a 17-year-old who lives in Rio de Janeiro. Take a 17-year-old who lives in Tokyo, and one who lives in Tehran. And let's take one from my home city, Johannesburg, and for the hell of it, Paris. So now you've got this group of 17-year-olds. They're not the same, although they do use the same technology. They either have a smartphone by one of the major brands. None of them have Blackberries. They wear similar clothes. They listen to the same music. Unfortunately, some of it is Justin Bieber. In other words, all of them have no taste. And they're drinking similar beverages. They're driving similar cars, maybe eating different food. But all of them are more like each other than any of them are like their parents. Does that phrase make sense to you? There is a global youth culture emerging, and it is not just the younger version of us. And if we want to be successful, if you want to be successful, especially in your industry, this is an industry that relies on what is the right word, a fleet of young people coming into the industry every year. You have to understand this is not just more of the same. This is not just the next crop coming in. That new approaches, new connections, new engagements need to be made because these young people are new, a new generation. They're sometimes called Generation Y. Why? Because they came after Generation X, who were the generation born during the 1970s and early 80s, the generation where nobody really knew what was going on. So that was maybe too simplistic a label. There are other reasons. They are Generation Y. And we'll come back to that point later because there is a nice management tip there. There are other reasons. But that's possibly too much information. So whatever label you prefer, millennial generation, I like digital native, Generation Y. A generation who, in the research that our team has done, I think the best descriptor of them is a generation who know nothing of the world before the events of 1989. Just yesterday, we commemorated the 25th anniversary of Tiananmen Square. As the students stood in front of the tanks in China. For the rest of that year of 1989, the world changed dramatically. Riots in Tehran, the end and death of communism, 9/11, Europe's 9/11, 9th of November 1989, the Berlin Wall comes down. Christmas Day of 1989, Ceausescu in Romania is given a public court case and executed in the afternoon. And on Boxing Day, Mikhail Gorbachev bans the Communist Party in Russia. On the 10th of February 1990, Nelson Mandela is released from jail in South Africa. And a few weeks later, in March of 1990, Augusto Pinochet steps down in Chile. I could go on, but I think I've made my point. What you're seeing on the screen there is 8 months of human history, because sometimes everything does just change everywhere all at once. And a new generation begins to be born. 1989 was also the year, to come back to the theme of this session, when the World Wide Web as we know it was born. British scientists working in Switzerland invented the hypertext Transfer Protocol, or the World Wide Web as we know it, and released it to the world a few months later, for free, as it happens. The World Wide Web and mobile phones and the technology world that we live in is but a young adult, 25 years old. And the young people who are 25 years old and younger are this generation who are different because they have been born and brought up in this different world, shaped by multiple screens and constant connection with data. This is probably my favorite photograph in this presentation, because those 4 young people are actually sending text messages to each other. Not because they are stupid and lazy and have no social skills, but because that is the world that they inhabit. That digital connection is the real connection that they have with each other and with the world. If you don't know what I mean by digital native, have a look at one in action. This is my favorite bit. She has to check whether her finger is still working. Because clearly that other thing is broken. That's not my 1-year-old. You can find that clip on YouTube. Just search for "a magazine is an iPad that does not work." What a thought. Do you think this little girl is ever going to read a print magazine or one of your printed flyers or catalogs? Do you think she'll ever read a print newspaper? And how happy will she be working for you? That's the question. And don't think you've got 18 years until she arrives at your office. Her older brothers and sisters are already there. If they studied a master's degree and a PhD, they still have had time to join your company. We're not just talking about the kids. We're talking about your youngest staff and, of course, even maybe more importantly, your youngest customers. And the influence that your unseen youngest customers have on their parents and the adults in their lives, in choices around hospitality and tourism. We also know that these young people have not only been shaped by the digital world, they've been shaped by different parenting considerations. Some of you are old enough to remember when children were seen and not heard. How's that working out for you these days, parents? No. These days we get down on the level of our children. We talk to them as equals, asking their opinions and getting info and insight from them. I just did this the other day. I have 3 daughters, and my youngest is 9 years old, and I leaned out the window, end of a long day, getting a little bit chilly, and I shouted down to the end of the garden, "Rebecca, would you like to have a bath now?" What had started as an instruction in my head had become a question out of my mouth. And Rebecca, with those beautiful brown eyes of her, looked back up and shouted, "No." And then they go through school and they're asked for their opinions and they get involved in group work and they're allowed to give feedback. And everybody tells them there's no such thing as a wrong answer. And then they come and work for you. I'm being serious. They reach the end of the week and they expect a certificate of achievement. Well done for making it to Friday. And when they come in, I know most of you work through the weekend, but when they come in to start a shift, they expect the CEO to be there on a Monday morning saying, "Thank you for coming back. It's wonderful to see you again." because that's what they've had their whole lives. In fact, can you see that from where you're seated? Back when you and I were at school, for some of us, if we got bad marks, it was our fault. Now, if these kids get bad results, it's somebody else's fault. And that's the problem when they mess up in your business. It's not their fault, is it? Of course, the world has let them down. Leaders in politics, leaders in religion, celebrities, sports stars, all have been a disappointment. In fact, I think the saddest thing I can say today is this. Today's young people have no heroes. They only have celebrities. And when you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Many of them will tell you, famous. Famous for what, you ask? No, just famous. It doesn't get sadder than that, in my opinion. They also know, of course, that this world is a very fragile place, and they look at us as the older adults and their parents, and they wonder why we're not doing more. It is the kids who are recycling in your house, isn't it? And who are managing that side of things because they sense it. They know it. Then the magazines come out and tell them that they're a narcissistic generation who's all about me, me, me. And so a legend is born. A legend which says we can't interact with them, we're very different. A legend which says they've got their own approach to authority and respect and communication and interaction. And then we see things like this.
1 minute, 1 minute, please. Time, thank you. Could you all please put down your pens and bring your papers to the front of the room? Thank you. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, you're too late. Gave you plenty of warnings about time. You failed. Sorry.
Excuse me, do you know who I am?
I have absolutely no idea.
Good.
You laugh now, but it's not so funny, is it, if that happens in real life, either at home or at the office. No, genuinely, these young people are different. And I think this is one of the most pressing management and leadership issues that we face right now. Now, I think I'm preaching to the converted in this room because I think more than many other industries, you feel this every day. Because you are engaged more than many other industries with this generation. So what do we do? If our young talent are different, not just a little bit different, but a lot different, then we have to be different. We have to engage with them differently. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting we have to bend over backwards and give them everything they want. I mean, what they want is jacuzzis in the reception area for themselves. And we can't give them everything they want. So don't hear me saying you have to just do everything they ask. But we do have to adjust and we do have to change because our talent are different. And they're not going to turn into us as they grow older. So we have just a few minutes left and then we'll also have some insights from a panel as we take this conversation forward. But in those few minutes, I want to suggest three things, three tips, if you like. We're specifically focusing our attention on communicating and connecting with them. Three things to do. The first is this. Well, in fact, before I jump into them, one final thing. There is a danger in giving you three things to do, as if that will solve all your problems. Most of you have taken 2 decades to make the mess you've got. I can't fix it in 25 minutes. But what I can do is help you to see the mindset shift. This isn't about 3 things to do. This is about 3 mindset shifts to change. It will look, the application of this will look different in every different business represented here. So, the first thing is this, you have to sort your technology out. This is a generation that uses technology as its communication medium. It's not a nice to have, it's not an extra. This is it. And you have to sort out your technology. This is a generation that lives with their smartphones. Now, most of us do that already. Almost every single person in this room is now never more than an arm's length away from a smartphone. It's the first thing you see in the morning because it probably is the thing that actually wakes you up. Even if you have a partner in the bed next to you, it is still the last thing you see at night because it's good night this side, then a quick update, and good night this side. And if you were to leave this at home, you would have gone back for it today. You would not spend a day without it. But today's young people, it's not just a device in their pockets which they sometimes use for phoning. This is it. This is everything. 70 to 100 times a day, they are taking this out and doing everything with it. And if you don't have a mobile-first strategy, not just a, let's get our strategy right and hope that we can build a little filter or a little app that puts it into the mobile and makes it accessible. Mobile first, you will miss this generation. And that's not a customer statement, that's a staff statement too. Do you have a staff app? Do you have a staff mobile channel? Do you have connections that mediate, that use this as the mediation tool? Now, when I started work in the early 1990s, I worked for KPMG in Johannesburg. And it was just at the beginning of the PC revolution. And KPMG had decided they wanted to try and get an advantage in becoming one of the first companies to use computer-assisted auditing techniques. I'd been a bit of a tech geek when I was at school, and I was put into part of the team that was developing these systems. And when I got there, they had just bought 62 of the world's best computers. These were amazing. They were the Apple SE30s. I still have one of them, actually. I use it as a doorstop. And in fact, I saw there is one in the Science Museum. And then you know you're old. Regardless of what it looks like today, at that stage it was the best thing available. And I would come into work early, I would leave late. I gave hundreds of discretionary hours unpaid to KPMG because I just loved the technology. We also had color photocopiers on every second floor and a fax machine on every floor. It was technological heaven in 1991. And young graduates coming into KPMG would stand in awe, amazed at the technology they had available. I wonder, as young people come and join your business today in 2014, are they amazed at the technology that you make available to them? The answer is probably yes, but amazed in all the wrong ways. Really? It's not good enough. Today's young people work in this world with apps and the digital world flowing all around them. They want to bring their own devices. They want to use their own technology. We're going to have a person from Samsung on later. I'll put this out there right now. I'm an Apple guy. But that's fine. If we're working in the same office, why can't we use the technologies we prefer? That's what they want. They want to have access to social media. Some of them want it so they can watch videos of cats. And we need to deal with that. And we don't need to see what you had for breakfast. But you know, in a recent survey, it was discovered that 7% of corporate CEOs have personal social media accounts. Now, most of you don't look as shocked as I would have hoped you would be at that stat. If I said this, it was recently discovered that only 7% of the United Kingdom CEOs can read and write. You would be horrified. I think it's the same thing. This world we live in is a world that most corporate CEOs and senior executives have no personal understanding of at all. How is it possible that they are making intelligent decisions about this world if they do not understand it, if they have never even seen it before? It's like writing a review of a hotel you've never been to. You can't. And if you are the senior leader in an organization and you have no understanding personally of this digital world, you are leading your company incorrectly and badly. It's as simple as that. Sure, don't get sucked. I'm not saying you have to send 100 Twitter messages a day and upload photographs of your food. But you do need to understand this world because it is the world. And in your industry, it's everything. So the second tip is about where, when, how, what, and all the rest of work. Now, look, we could talk here about their family lives and the fact that they want personal lives. We could talk about the fact that they want to work from home and be more flexible. Those are themes we've been talking about for years. Of course, in your industry, it can be slightly tougher when you need people feet on the ground in certain places for certain hours. But we still need to get our head around the way in which we give people freedom and flexibility in their workplaces and give people a sense of enjoyment in the jobs that they do. Most young people will be attracted to your industry because of the fun they can have, because of the excitement of the industry. I don't know, maybe this advert makes my point better than I can. There's probably a whole workshop in that advert alone. Freedom, flexibility, fun. I could spend the whole afternoon, but 3 words there. How much of those 3 things do young people get when they connect with you? Freedom, flexibility, fun. Then we can't give them all the freedom, all the flexibility, and all the fun they want. But you can probably give them more than you're currently giving them. Why don't you appoint somebody on your team as a sort of minister of fun? Make it their responsibility to make sure everybody has some fun. Measure them on it, even reward them on it if you can. So then finally, to the heart of the matter, how do we communicate? How do we connect with them? Again, if we had 3 hours, I could valuably fill the time, but what are the top tips here? Let's get back to a photograph of young people really communicating and connecting. I know these 4 young girls were really communicating and connecting because the girl on the far right-hand side is one of my daughters, Hannah. And they were at a school function. And I looked across at these 4 and I thought, good grief. And I had a bit of a grumpy old man moment. Just talk to each other, please. And I went over and I asked them why they weren't. And Hannah said to me, Dad, it's not what it looks like. There aren't 4 girls in this conversation, there are 6. 2 other girls are not able to be here this evening, and we're trying to share the excitement with them. And out of respect for them, we are not having more of a conversation here than the 6 of us are capable of having together. This is the mindset shift. Just because it doesn't look like they are communicating and connecting doesn't mean they're not. Just because they're not communicating and connecting the way you would do it doesn't mean they are not. And you as a senior person, you as a leader in the industry and your business need to find ways to connect into their world, not just expect them to plug back into yours. And technology is obviously one of the enablers to allow you to do that. And we can use all of our technologies, personalizing these, customizing our connections with them, making them more social. We've learned that. Your industry taught us, TripAdvisor and many others taught us that social is vital because that's how people connect and engage. But it's not about the technology. It's about a mindset shift that says this is what needs to be done. And maybe as I close and we move into the panel, maybe this last little clip will sum up more than any of my words could, the type of attitude and mindset shift I think we all need towards this younger generation.
I am part of a lost generation, and I refuse to believe that I can change the world. I realize this may be a shock, but happiness comes from within is a lie, and money will make me happy. So in 30 years, I will tell my children they are not the most important thing in my life. My employer will know that I have my priorities straight because work is more important than family. I tell you this, once upon a time, families stayed together. But this will not be true in my era. This is a quick fix society. Experts tell me 30 years from now, I will be celebrating the 10th anniversary of my divorce. I do not concede that I will live in a country of my own making. In the future, environmental destruction will be the norm. No longer can it be said that my peers and I care about this earth. It will be evident that my generation is apathetic and lethargic. It is foolish to presume that there is hope. And all of this will come true unless we choose to reverse it. There is hope. It is foolish to presume that my generation is apathetic and lethargic. It will be evident that my peers and I care about this earth. No longer can it be said that environmental destruction will be the norm. In the future, I will live in a country of my own making. I do not concede that 30 years from now, I will be celebrating the 10th anniversary of my divorce. Experts tell me this is a quick fix society, but this will not be true in my era. Families stayed together once upon a time. I tell you this, family is more important than work. I have my priorities straight because my employer will know that they are not the most important thing in my life. So in 30 years, I will tell my children, money will make me happy is a lie, and true happiness comes from within. I realize this may be a shock, but I can change the world, and I refuse to believe that I am part of a lost generation.
I think that if we give these young people the benefit of the doubt, if we change the main attitude shift is to say they are not like us and won't be like us. And if we expect the best of them, I genuinely believe that you will get what you expect from Generation Y. Have low expectations, they will meet you there. But if we set our expectations high because we know they are not a lost generation, I think they will meet us there too. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.